The wine glass in my hand started trembling before I even realized why. It was our anniversary. Thomas sat across from me in our favorite restaurant, cutting into his steak with that calm, confident smile I had fallen in love with 2 years ago. Candles flickered between us. Soft music played. Everything looked perfect. And then my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. But something made me glance down. The message was from a number I hadn't seen in 3 years. My brother. Isaiah. The same brother I stopped speaking to after our parents died. The same brother who said I had chosen money over family. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Then I read the message. And my entire world cracked. Get up and leave. Don't say anything to your husband. He married you for your inheritance. Tonight he's going to act. My heart slammed against my ribs. I forced myself to breathe. Across the table, Thomas looked up at me and smiled. Everything okay, sweetheart? His voice was soft, warm, loving. The same voice that had comforted me when my parents died. The same voice that told me I wasn't alone anymore. I quickly flipped my phone face down on the table. Just a work message, I said. Nothing important. Thomas reached across the table and took my hand. His touch used to make me feel safe. Tonight it made my stomach twist. Not tonight, he said softly. Tonight, Mrs. Amamira Richardson belongs to me. Mrs. Richardson. I used to love hearing that. After losing my parents in a car accident 3 years earlier, the world had felt empty. Then Thomas appeared. Like a miracle. Like someone sent to save me from the silence. But Isaiah's message burned in my mind. He married you for your inheritance. I lifted my wine glass to hide the tremor in my fingers. Could Isaiah be telling the truth? 3 years ago, after our parents died, I inherited everything. Richardson Industries. Our family's real estate. Investments. Trust funds. More money than I ever imagined. Thomas had been there through all of it. Helping me with lawyers. Helping me understand documents. Helping me make decisions. Or maybe, helping himself. My phone buzzed again. Another message. I slowly glanced down. He's been planning this for months. Leave now. My mouth suddenly felt dry. Thomas was talking about our weekend plans. I nodded, smiled, pretended everything was normal. But my brain was racing. What if Isaiah was right? What if the man sitting across from me, the man I loved, the man I married, was lying about everything? I studied Thomas carefully. His expensive suit, his perfect watch, his confident posture. He always told me his family had old railroad money, generational wealth. But now, for the first time, the story sounded rehearsed, polished, too perfect. Thomas, I said quietly. He looked up. Yes, baby. Tell me again how your family made their money. He didn't hesitate. Old railroad fortune, he said smoothly. My great-grandfather built half the rail lines between here and Chicago. Exactly the same story. Word for word. Like a script. My phone vibrated again. I checked it under the table. He's going to drug your wine. The room suddenly felt colder. I stared at the glass in my hand. Had he already done it? Was I seconds away from losing everything? My mind shifted instantly. I didn't build my parents' company into a multi-million-dollar empire by panicking. If Isaiah was right, I needed proof. I needed to be smart. I stood slowly. Excuse me, I said. I need the restroom. Thomas started to stand, but I waved him down. Finish your steak, I said with a smile. I'll be right back. Inside the bathroom, My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I called Isaiah. He answered on the first ring. Amira. His voice was tight. Urgent. Is it true? I whispered. A long silence filled the line. Then he said the words that changed everything. I've been tracking him for 6 months. My knees almost gave out. What do you mean tracking him? I hired a private investigator, Isaiah said. Because I didn't trust him. My heart pounded harder. Amira, your husband isn't who he says he is. His real name is Tommy Rich, and he's done this before. My stomach dropped. What? There was a woman in Portland 2 years ago. And another in Denver. Both wealthy. Both married him. Both lost everything. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My hands were shaking. My entire marriage suddenly felt like a lie. What is he planning tonight? I asked. Isaiah's answer was cold. Everything. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Everything, I repeated quietly. Isaiah's voice lowered. He was going to drug your wine tonight. My fingers tightened around the phone. What would that do? Nothing deadly, Isaiah said. Just something to make you confused, compliant. The bathroom suddenly felt too small. Too quiet. And then, I whispered. He planned to take you somewhere to sign documents. What documents? A power of attorney, Isaiah said. And once you signed them. My chest tightened. He would own everything. The words echoed in my head. Everything. My parents' company. Their homes. Their legacy. My future. All of it. Gone. Amira, Isaiah said urgently. You need to leave the restaurant right now. My heart pounded. What about Thomas? Don't say anything to him, Isaiah replied. Just leave. I looked at myself in the mirror. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of memories. 3 years of believing I had found someone who loved me. Was it all a lie? Amira, Isaiah said again. I'm sending you my address. Come straight here. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I allowed myself to feel the grief. The anger. The humiliation. Then I opened them again. Send it, I said. When I walked back into the restaurant, Thomas looked up immediately. There you are, he said with a smile. I was getting worried. The warmth in his voice almost broke me. Almost. Sorry, I said. I'm not feeling very well. Concern appeared instantly on his face. Do you want to go home? His performance was flawless. Perfect husband. Perfect concern. Perfect lie. No, I said softly. You stay and finish dinner. I'll just take an Uber. Are you sure? He asked. Of course. I leaned down and kissed his cheek. I love you, I said. The words felt poisonous. I love you too, he replied. Text me when you get home. I walked out of the restaurant without looking back. The cool night air hit my face. My hands were shaking again. But now it wasn't fear. It was rage. I opened the Uber app. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in the back seat of a car, watching the city lights blur past the window. My marriage had ended in the span of 20 minutes. But something deeper hurt more. The memories. Our wedding. The nights he held me when I cried about my parents. The mornings he made me coffee. Were those real? Or were they just part of the con? My phone buzzed. A message from Thomas. Hope you're feeling better. Coming home soon. Love you. I stared at the screen. Then I turned the phone face down. Isaiah's building appeared 20 minutes later. It was an old brick warehouse converted into apartments. Very different from the luxury house I shared with Thomas. Isaiah was waiting for me in the lobby. For a moment, we just stared at each other. 3 years of silence between us. Then he pulled me into a hug. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have told you sooner." I hugged him back. "Just tell me everything now." Upstairs, Isaiah opened his laptop. The screen filled with photos, documents, bank records, surveillance images. My stomach dropped. One photo showed Thomas sitting with another woman. Blonde, elegant, smiling at him the same way I used to. "Patricia Collins," Isaiah said. "Portland. What happened to her? She married him. And she lost her company." My chest tightened. Isaiah clicked another photo. Another woman. Older. Kind eyes. "Susan Miller," he said. "Denver." "And her?" I asked quietly. "She lost everything too." I sat back slowly. "How many women?" Isaiah hesitated. "At least 6. The room went silent. 6 lives destroyed. 6 women who believed they had found love. 6 women who trusted the same man. The same lie. Then Isaiah looked at me seriously. "Amira, tonight was the final stage." "What do you mean?" "After tonight," he said, "you would have lost everything." I stared at the photos on the screen. And suddenly, something inside me changed. The fear disappeared. The sadness faded. In its place, something colder appeared. Something stronger. "Isaiah," I said quietly. "Yes. We're not running." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I looked at Thomas's photo on the screen. The man who thought I was weak. The man who thought I was easy. The man who thought he had already won. "We're going to destroy him." For the first time that night, I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry. Furious. Isaiah watched me carefully. "You're not thinking about confronting him, are you?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm thinking about trapping him." Isaiah leaned back in his chair. "You're serious?" "Yes." "Amira, this man is dangerous." "I know. And he's been planning this for years." "I know that too." I stood up slowly. "And that's exactly why we're going to beat him." Isaiah looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay," he said. "If we do this, we do it smart." He opened another folder on his laptop. Inside were dozens of documents. Bank transfers. Fake companies. Shell accounts. "This is how he moves the money," Isaiah explained. "Small transfers first. Then the big one." "How big?" I asked. Isaiah looked at me. "Everything." I felt my stomach tighten again. But I forced myself to stay calm. "So what's the plan?" he asked. I thought for a moment. Then I said the only thing that made sense. "I go home." Isaiah shook his head immediately. "No. He'll know something is wrong. Not if I act normal." "And what if he tries again tonight?" Isaiah asked. "Then he tries. And this time." I smiled slightly. "We'll be ready." An hour later, we met with the private investigator Isaiah had hired. Her name was Janet Rodriguez. She was small, quiet, and incredibly sharp. She studied me carefully. "You're brave," she said. "Or stupid." "Maybe both," I replied. She smiled slightly. "All right." Then she placed something on the table. A tiny device. "What's that?" I asked. "A recorder." My heart skipped. "You want me to record him?" "Yes. If he confesses, if he talks about the scam, if he mentions the other women." She tapped the device. "That's your proof." Isaiah looked worried. "What if he gets suspicious?" Janet shrugged. "Then we adapt." "But men like him have one weakness." "What?" I asked. "Greed." She leaned forward. "If he thinks he's still going to win, he'll talk." At 4, 00 in the morning, Isaiah drove me home. The sky was beginning to brighten. My house looked peaceful, normal, like nothing had changed. But inside, a monster was waiting. Isaiah parked the car. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "Yes," I said. "I do." I opened the car door. "Amira." I turned back. "Be careful." I nodded. Then I walked toward the house. Thomas's car was already in the driveway. The lights were on inside. He had been waiting for me. My heart started pounding again, but I forced myself to stay calm. I opened the door. Thomas appeared instantly. "Amira." He rushed toward me, pulling me into his arms. "Where were you?" I was worried sick. His voice was full of panic. His arms wrapped tightly around me. For a moment, I almost believed him again. Almost. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "I just needed to clear my head." He pulled back and looked at me carefully. "Your phone was off." "I know. You scared me." He kissed my forehead. "You okay now?" "Yes." I forced a small smile. "I think I just panicked about the money." His eyes flickered. "Just for a second." "What money?" "The bank transfers," I said. "I saw them earlier." His face changed. Only slightly. But I noticed. "Oh, that," he laughed softly. "Baby, that's nothing." "What do you mean?" "It's just investments." He walked to his laptop, pulling up spreadsheets, charts, numbers. Everything looked perfectly professional. "See," he said. "These accounts are part of a restructuring plan. Higher returns. Safer growth." I nodded slowly, pretending to understand, pretending to believe him. "I feel stupid," I said. "I thought something was wrong." Thomas smiled warmly. "You worry too much." He took my hands. "Everything I do is for us." Us. The word made my skin crawl. "Thomas," I said quietly. "Yes. I trust you." His smile grew wider. And that was the moment I knew. He believed me. Completely. He leaned closer and kissed me. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me," he whispered. And inside my pocket, the recorder captured every word. That night, I barely slept. Thomas lay beside me, breathing slowly, peacefully, like nothing in the world was wrong. Like he hadn't just tried to steal everything from me. I stared at the ceiling in the darkness. The small recorder was still hidden in my pocket, and it contained exactly what we needed. His lies, his manipulation, his plan. But the game wasn't over yet, because Thomas still believed he was winning. And tomorrow, he was going to make his move. The next morning, he woke up cheerful. Too cheerful. He was making pancakes in the kitchen when I walked downstairs. "Morning, beautiful," he said. Like nothing had happened. Like he wasn't planning to steal millions of dollars. "Morning," I replied. He poured coffee and placed a plate in front of me. "I talked to Angela this morning," he said. My heart skipped. Angela. One of his accomplices. "Our investments are ready," he continued. "All we need is to unlock the accounts." I nodded slowly. "That sounds good." He smiled. By now he was completely relaxed. Completely confident. He thought he had fooled me. "You know," he said casually, "we could double our money this year." "Really?" "Oh yeah." He leaned closer. "Maybe even triple it." I forced myself to smile. "That would be amazing." Inside my ear, the tiny earpiece whispered. Janet's voice. "We're recording everything." I took a slow sip of coffee. Thomas continued explaining the investment plan. Shell companies, transfers, accounts overseas. The more he talked, the deeper he buried himself. Finally, he stood up. I need to make a few calls, he said. Bank stuff. He walked into his office. The moment the door closed, Janet spoke again. We got everything. My heart started pounding. What now? I whispered. Now we wait. At 3:47 p.m. My phone buzzed. A message from Janet. He's at the bank. Another message. Transfer started. My chest tightened. Another message appeared. 2 million moved. Then another. Police are moving. I stood frozen in the living room. My entire life felt like it was balancing on a knife's edge. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Thomas. I answered. Baby, he said quickly. Everything is perfect. Really? I asked. Yes. Everything worked. His voice was excited. Triumphant. The money is moving. Then he laughed. A laugh I had never heard before. Cold. Cruel. I told you I'd take care of everything. In the earpiece, Janet whispered. Keep him talking. I swallowed. How much did you move? I asked. 4 million so far, he said proudly. And by tomorrow. His voice dropped. Everything will be gone. That was all the police needed. 30 minutes later, Thomas burst through the front door. His face was furious. He had already heard. Craig Stevens had been arrested. Angela was on the run. The transfers were frozen. He looked at me. For the first time, there was no smile. No charm. No mask. Hello, Tommy, I said quietly. He froze. You know, he said slowly. I know everything. For a moment, he stared at me. Then he laughed. A harsh, ugly laugh. Well, he said, I guess the game is over. He walked closer. You were a good target, Amira. My heart tightened. A good target. He nodded. You were lonely. You were rich. You were easy. The words hurt more than I expected. But I didn't show it. You made one mistake, I said calmly. What's that? You thought I was weak. Sirens echoed outside. Thomas's head turned toward the window. Police cars surrounded the house. His face changed. For the first time, he looked afraid. You set me up, he said quietly. I looked straight into his eyes. No, I replied. You set yourself up. The front door burst open. Federal agents don't move. Within seconds, they had him on the floor. Handcuffed. The man who had spent years destroying lives was finally finished. As they dragged him outside, he looked back at me. You think you won, he sneered. I didn't answer, because I already knew the truth. Thomas Rich was sentenced to 28 years in federal prison. The FBI uncovered 23 victims across the country. Millions of dollars were recovered. And the man who once believed he was untouchable would spend the rest of his best years behind bars. As for me, I took the money he tried to steal and built something new. The Richardson Foundation, an organization that helps victims of romance fraud rebuild their lives. Every week women call our hotline. Scared, confused, ashamed. And every time I tell them the same thing. You're not weak. You're not stupid. You were targeted. And together, we fight back. Because predators like Thomas believe one thing above all else. That their victims will stay silent. But they're wrong. We survived. And now, we're louder than ever.